We begin today in the Gemara on Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, a few lines from the bottom, where the Gemara brings a teretz from Abaye regarding a contradiction, whether we are choishish lemisa. Are we concerned about a person passing away or about an animal dying? So let me just quickly review what we were learning before. We're talking about using an animal for the wall of a sukkah, and Rab Meir says we can't use it because according to Abaye's pshat, we're concerned that the animal will die, and you want to have the height of 10 tefachim for the sukkah. So that's Rab Meir. Rab Yehuda disagrees. Rab Yehuda says, no, we're not concerned the animal will die. So you can use it for the wall of a sukkah. So the Gemara asks a contradiction. Abaye himself said that the opinions of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda are reversed when it comes to a case where a husband, a kayin, left out of town, and we're not sure if he's alive or not, and the relevance is whether his wife could still eat truma or not. So there's a Mishnah that says that she could still eat truma, but then there's another place where it says that she can't eat truma. So the answer Abaye there said was that it's a machlokes between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda, and Rab Meir is the one that's not concerned that the husband died, and Rab Yehuda is concerned that the husband died. So he says mamish the exact opposite of what he said over here regarding Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda's opinion with the wall of the sukkah being made out of the body of an animal. So the Gemara now here brings the source of where Abaye saw that Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda are arguing about this concept, whether we're concerned that the husband passed away or not. And as we'll see here in the continuation of the Gemara, this subject about the concern of the husband passing away is not only about this specific case, about a person passing away or an animal dying, but it's more broadly the question about, are we concerned about something developing, something changing in the future? As we'll see here in this brayso. The Tanya. So we're starting 4 lines from the bottom. So Abaye says, you know what, let's read the 2 lines from before that. Vama Abaye explained, Loi kashya, there's no question on over here, the contradiction. Whether we're concerned that the husband died or not, it's not a question. Rab Meir. One is Rab Meir, Doloi chayish lemisa. Rab Meir is not concerned that the husband died. And Rab Yehuda. And the other one that it says that we are concerned is Rab Yehuda, the chayish lemisa, that's concerned that the husband died. So where is the source for this? The Tanya, we learned in Abraisa. Halekeyach yayin mi bein akutim. A person bought wine from amongst the kutim. So the kutim were treated like goyim, and eventually the wine from goyim is not something you're allowed to drink at all. But Rashi says this is talking about a time before that gzeira was implemented. So you bought wine from kutim, but the issue is we don't trust them for giving any maisris, and not only maisris, but we don't trust them for giving truma either. So therefore, what does he do? So as Rashi says, we're talking here about a time, either it's right before Shabbos, and he doesn't have time to properly separate the trumas and maisris, or we're talking about a person that does not have the proper vessels. He doesn't have another keli that's tahoy that he can put the truma and maiser into, and he wants to drink from the wine. So what does he do? Oimer, he says, Shnei lugin shani yosat lahafrish, 2 lugin from this wine, that's 100 lug. So a 50th of it is 2 lugin, which is the average amount that you give for truma. Harei ein truma. So in the future, I'm going to separate it, but right now the wine is mixed into the barrel, and it's going to be truma. So by saying that, the truma is separated, even though it's mixed in. And then the same thing, asara, 10 of the lugin. In other words, a 10th should be ma'aser rishon. That should be ma'aser rishon. Taisvus actually points out that it's not precise, because once he took off 2 for truma, so you're only left with 98 lugin. So 98 lugin, a 10th of that is not 10. It's less than that. So Taisvus says either we're talking about a barrel that had 102 lug of wine, and after you took off the truma, you're left with 100. So 10 is the precise amount of meiser. Or when the Braisa says asara meiser rishon, doesn't mean that you take off 10 lugin. It means asara means a 10th, whatever the amount is. If it's less than 10, it's less than that. Tisha meiser sheni, 9 parts should be meiser sheni, which is the chiyuv of bringing the meiser to Yerushalayim. And then umeichel v'shaisa. he can take the Ma'aseh Sheni, as you do, you don't bring the Ma'aseh Sheni itself to Yerushalayim, you desecrate it upon money, and the money is brought up to Yerushalayim, and then you can drink the Ma'aseh Sheni here in Chutz La'aretz. That's Rashi's Pshat. However, Tosfos says that Meichel does not mean to desecrate it on the money, because it would have used the Lashon Machalal. So therefore Tosfos says, Meichel just simply means that he can begin to drink it. He can drink it because he already separated the Ma'aseh Sheni. He can drink it right away. Okay. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. So as Rashi says, the basis of Rab Meir's opinion is the concept of Bereira, which means that later you're going to actually separate the Truma, the Ma'aseh Rishon, the Ma'aseh Sheni. Retroactively, it clarifies that that part that you're separating now is what you were mafresh before, is what you separated before. This is the concept of Bereira. We had this many times before. So over here we see that Rab Meir holds of the concept of Bereira. There's a lengthy Tosfos here about this. Tosfos brings stiris from other places in Shas where it seems that Rab Meir does not hold of the concept of Bereira. And one point of the Tosfos, he says that at different levels in Bereira, when you're going to try to clarify something by something that happens later and to have it clarified retroactively, so different levels to this. Over here, Tosfos says this is better than in other places because the person is saying something b'dibur clearly. I want to be truma, to be ma'aseh. He's saying b'dibur what he wants should happen. So then later, it could clarify it retroactively. In other cases of Bereira, you're just relying on something being clarified on its own without you saying anything, so it's not as powerful. Rab Yehuda, Rab Yosi, Rab Shimon, Oisrin. Rab Yehuda and Rab Yosi and Rab Shimon all say that it's also to do this. And the reason is because, as the Gemara will quote later, and as Rashi brings here, there's a gzeira. What they say is, what's going to happen if this barrel bursts open, and then when you come later to separate the Truma and the Ma'aseh, you have no wine left. So how could you rely on separating it later? So therefore they say you're not allowed to drink it in this way. So now what do we see here? Here we're talking about being concerned about a barrel bursting. So Rab Meir is the one that's not concerned about the barrel bursting. And Rab Yehuda, amongst the others, is concerned about that. So Rashi says the Gemara is comparing this to the concern about the animal dying. So if Rab Meir is the one is not concerned about the barrel bursting, that means that he's not concerned about a person dying either. That's why Abaye said that the Braisa or the Mishnah before that said that the husband didn't die is Rab Meir. And Rab Yehuda that is concerned about the barrel bursting, he has the same opinion regarding a person that leaves that he might have died. So here we see the exact opposite of what we said in the beginning. What Abaye said regarding the wall of a sukkah, that when you have the animal used as a wall of a sukkah, Rab Meir is the one that's concerned that he might die, that the animal might die, and Rab Yehuda is not. So the Gemara says, Eipach. We have to reverse the answer of Abaye here regarding the contradiction of the husband leaving. Rab Meir chayesh lemisa. Really what Abaye had answered is in sync with what he said regarding the wall of the sukkah, that Rab Meir is the one that's afraid that a person may have passed away. Rab Yehuda lo chayesh lemisa. And Rab Yehuda is not concerned that the person passed away. And actually Abaye brought as a support for his answer there regarding the husband leaving this braisa regarding sukkah. The Tanya, as we learned in the braisa here, asal behema doifel sukkah. If a person makes the behema, the wall for the sukkah, Rab Meir paisel, Rab Yehuda machsher. Rab Meir says it's possible because we're concerned that the animal could die, and Rab Yehuda machsher. And Rab Yehuda says that it's kosher, we're not concerned. So therefore that's not a contradiction. The way he explains the halacha by sukkah, and the way he explains the halacha by a person that left that may pass away, over there, Abaye always said that Rab Meir is the one concerned that he may die. But now the question becomes, what's the story with the case of the barrel bursting? There, when it comes also to a concern about something that might happen in the future, we see that their opinions are in the reverse. So now the Gemara says, Kashi ad Rab Meir ad Rab Meir. But now we have a contradiction of Rab Meir's opinion. Here Rab Meir is concerned that the animal might die, the person may have passed away. And when it comes to the barrel of wine, he's not concerned that it might burst. Amalach Rab Meir, so Rab Meir answers, they're both concerns about something that might happen in the future, but it's not the same. Misa shchiche, the fact that someone may die is something which is more common. Bekiya sanoid, but this barrel bursting, lo shchiche, that's something that's not common. So therefore over there he's not concerned about that. Efsher, why? Efsher the masa le'el, because this is something that you can give someone to a guard, to guard this barrel, to make sure that it does not burst, and therefore in that case there's not the same level of concern. The Gemara now asks the question regarding Rabbi Yehuda. Kashi de Rabbi Yehuda, but we have also the contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion regarding a person dying or the animal dying. Rabbi Yehuda holds that we're not concerned. And here regarding the barrel, Rabbi Yehuda is concerned. So we just explained that by a barrel, it's less likely that it should burst. So why would Rabbi Yehuda be concerned over here? So the Gemara answers, Taime, that Rabbi Yehuda lav mishum dechayish lebekiyas noid. The basis of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is not because he's concerned about the barrel bursting. Ela mishum delesle breda. The basis of their opinion is they don't hold him, and together with Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, disagree with the entire concept of breda, which is being mafresh the truma now, and it's still mixed in with everything else, and only separating it later, relying on that retroactively it clarifies which part was truma. You can't do that. You can't drink from it in between. So they don't hold of this entire concept of breda. Why? What's the issue? Why they don't hold of the concept of breda is actually a machlokes between Rashi and Taisus. Not here, but this is a sugi in Erevin and in other places as well. So Rashi says the issue is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, even if the truma will be separated, but the wine of the truma is mixed in with everything else. So when you drink from the wine, before you actually separate it, you may be drinking truma wine. So how could you do that? And we don't rely on what's going to be clarified later to say that what you drank was not truma, and then later what you separated was truma. It's all mixed, and therefore you're drinking truma, possibly. That's Rashi's pshat. Taisus, however, disagrees. Taisus says that the entire hafroshes truma never took effect. Since you never separated it, you can't rely on later when you're going to take it out to clarify retroactively, so it never took effect. So if you're going to drink from it, the issue is not that you're drinking truma, the issue is that you're drinking tevel. You're drinking from this wine where the truma was never separated. That's the reason why they held that you can't do this. But not because the barrel is going to burst. That's really not the basis of their opinion. But the Gemara asks on this, it says so clearly in the Braisa, are you saying Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned for the barrel to burst? But it clearly says in the Sefer, Amru loy le Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda and the other Tanaim said to Rabbi Meir, don't you agree that there's a concern that maybe this barrel will burst? So then it comes out that this person drank from tevel retroactively because he never ends up actually separating his trumas and maisris. So that was their taina that they had. And Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, that is answered, if and when it'll burst, then we'll have an issue. In other words, what Rabbi Meir was saying is, right now, there's no reason to be concerned that will happen. It's not likely. So Meklal, what do we see from this conversation? The Chayish Rabbi Yehuda that Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about the fact that the barrel may burst, not like you said that he's arguing about the whole subject of Breda or not. So the Gemara answers, no, that's not a raya. Hasam Rabbi Yehuda hu de ka'amal Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda is speaking to Rabbi Meir. That's not his opinion. He's telling Rabbi Meir something. He says as follows: Lididi, me myself, Leslie Breda. I don't hold of this entire concept of relying retroactively on knowing where the truma is. Ela lididach the yesh Breda. According to your opinion, that you rely on this Breda. But nevertheless, there's another problem. Won't you agree that there's still an issue that the barrel might burst? So how could you rely on the truma being given now? And Amalei and Rabbi Meir, that is answered, no, I'm not concerned, that's not common, and if and when it will burst, then we'll have an issue then. But right now, we could rely on this for the future, and we don't have to be concerned that it will burst. So that ends this conversation that we're having regarding Abaya's interpretation of Rabbi Meir's opinion. That's what this was all based on. And we have three different cases. We have the case of the Sukkah, using an animal for a Sukkah. We have the case of a husband leaving his wife, knowing if she could eat Truma or not. And we have the case of the Maisa, Trumas and Maisas regarding a barrel, whether we're concerned that it will burst or not. And all these cases are connected to one another, or maybe not connected, as the Gemara point out, that the barrel bursting is a little different. And the Gemara settled the whole thing. But now the Gemara comes back and asks the question, Rabbi Yehuda lemisa? Is it true that Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned that a person will die? But what nan, we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said, Af isha cheres maskinen lo isha matomas ishtoi, in the beginning of Masechta Yuma, where it talks about the Kohen Gadol that we have to designate for doing the Avodah in Yom Kippur, and it says there, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that not only do we have to designate another Kohen to take him over in case he becomes unfit to do the Avodah, but we also have to designate another wife in case his wife dies. And one of the conditions of a Kohen doing the Avodah is v'chiper ba'adai uva'ad beisai zu ishtoi, as Rashi here brings. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda is concerned that his wife may die. So the Gemara answers, that's not a question. Ha'itma Allah, we learned on that, Omer Avona Bereder Rav Yeshua, Maila Asu Bekapara. This is a special precaution that was taken specifically here regarding the Avodah of a Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur. Since this is the Kapara for the entire Klal Yisrael, we don't want to take any chances of jeopardizing his Avodah, so therefore we separate another wife for him. So that's not a question. But now the Gemara comes back to the case of Sukkah. The Machlokes is whether you can use the body of an animal for a Sukkah. We had two interpretations, Abaye and Rab Zera. Abaye said the concern is Shema Tomus, the animal could die, and you won't have the height of 10 Tfachim. And Rab Zera says the concern is Shema Tivrach, the animal may run away. So the Gemara now has a question on both of these interpretations. Bein Laman Dama Shema Tomus. Both according to the opinion, Abaye that says the concern is the animal may die. Bein Laman Dama Shema Tivrach. And also according to the opinion that says the animal may run away. What does this mean? Midayraisa mechitza mal yehi. This means that what they're both saying is that minatayre, using an animal as a wall, is a perfect partition. It's a good wall. V'rabbanan or the gazriba. There's the concern with the rabbanan, either it'll die or it will run away. But now the question is, if so, ela meyata lirab meyer tetame mishum gailel. If so, if this presence of the animal in that place, minatayre, is a perfect separation, so using an animal as a gailel, as a covering for a kaver or a covering for an orain of a dead body, should be a gailel. It should have the halacha of a gailel, which is on top. That's what it is, on top of the body of a person. And the halacha of a gailel is that if you touch it, you become tamei. If there's an oil over it, you become tamei. It should be a gailel. Right? In other words, there's only a concern over there by sukkah. There's a concern that it might go away or run away, but minat taira, there's a tumah here. So are we going to say that we're going to be mekel because of this? We're going to be lenient because it might walk away or it might die? We can't be lenient for this. So there should be the issue of a gailel, that there's a tumah because of this. So Alamatman, why did we learn in a Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda mitame mishum gailel. Rabbi Yehuda says that an animal is tamei because of being a gailel for a body, a dead body. And Rab Meir metayr, and Rab Meir says that it's tar, that there's no issue of it being a gailel. But why according to Rab Meir is it tar? If according to Rab Meir, the only difference with a live animal is that it might run away or it might die, that's something that you can be stringent for because of those concerns regarding the wall of a sukkah, but you can't be mekel regarding the tumah of a gailel. Rashi here points out that really on the Braisa of Chav Gimel Amar Aleph, it said it over there as well. Right, the Gemara there brought a whole list of things regarding the body of an animal that it has can't be used for the wall of a sukkah, for a mavoi, and for other things. And it also said v'loy gaila lekever. So the Gemara could have asked from that lashon of the Braisa there as well. But it's bringing you a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah, and it's bringing you a Mishnah where it says the clear lashon v'Rab Meir metahir. So therefore, the pshat of both Abaya and Rab Zera is a problem with this halacha of gaila. So because of all of this, after the whole discussion we had, the Gemara brings and that we have to say another pshat, not like Abaya and not like Rab Zera. Elo Rav Acha bar Yaakov. So rather, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Kasava Rab Meir. Rab Meir's opinion is, Kol mechitza she'oimedes beruach. Any mechitza that cannot stand on its own, it has air inside of it that's keeping it up, like a living person that has the lungs and the air inside his lungs and the air in his body that keeps him standing. Or in the case of an animal, there's the air inside of the animal that keeps it standing. Ain't a mechitza. It does not have the halacha of a mechitza. As Rashi here says, such a kind of a mechitza, it's standing by a dovashem by mamish. What keeps it standing? Air, which is something that has it's not a tangible mechitza. So therefore, that's the issue. It's the issue menatayre. The mechitza in essence is not a mechitza when what keeps it standing is air. Ikadamri, others say that Rav Acha bar Yaakov said a bit different. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Kesav Rab Meir. Rab Meir holds kol mechitza she'eina asuya b'dei adam eina mechitza. any mechitza that's not made by a person, that is not a good mechitza. It has to be a mechitza of something that's made by a person. An animal which is standing but not made by a person, that's not considered to be a good mechitza. So the Taisvis in Erevin clarifies the pshat in this is not as it sounds literally that the mechitzas of a sukkah have to be humanly made. And we had before cases you can use bushes and trees, or in a tree you can use all kinds of mechitzas even if it's not made by a human being. Rather, what it means is a mechitza that's not able to be made by a person. We're talking about a mechitza that the Eibusha creates the life of an animal in this way, and a person can't create a living animal this way, not something that's able to be created by a person. That's something which is not a mechitza. That's what the Gemara means to say here. So, the Gemara now brings an afgemina between these two interpretations of what Rav Acha bar Yaakov said. My benayu, so what would be a difference? Ikke benayu, the difference is the oikma benoi tafuach. You took the hide or leather that's used for wine, to store wine in it, and you blew it up. And that's what you're using for mechitza. It's basically making your walls of your sukkah from balloons. Imagine that. So, the one that says that if you have a mechitza that is standing with ear, so this is not a mechitza. It's not ein mamish. It's just ear. The opinion that says that the issue with this kind of mechitza is that it's not humanly made. It's not possible to be made by a human being. It's a created animal created by the Eibishter. So they over here, hare asui b'dei. This is a mechitza where this person blew the air inside of this noi tafuach, or the balloons, whatever it is, and therefore it is the good mechitza. So that's a very simple difference between these two interpretations. The Gemara comes back to another point that was mentioned in the Braisa earlier. Amar, the master said before, Mishum Rabbi Yosef Glili Yamru. In the name of Rabbi Yosef Glili it was said, Af ein kaisven olav gite noshim. On a live animal you can't write a get for a woman. My time the Rabbi Yosef Glili. What's the reason? Why not? The Tanya we learned in the Braisa, sefer, it says in the Torah you have to write it on a sefer. You write the get on a book, on a parchment, on a document. Ein li el sefer. Minayin l'Rabbis called Dava. How do I know you could write a get on other materials as well? Talmud loymar v'kosav lo mikol mokum. The Torah says v'kosav lo, so v'kosav is adding that it has to be written for her. So whatever materials you write it on. Im keimat Talmud loymar sefer. So if v'kosav is coming to add anything, so what is the Torah saying when it says sefer that has to be written on a document? What exactly is it coming to exclude? Loymar lacha, it comes to tell you ma sefer. Just like a sefer, a document is something that has no life in it, and also and it doesn't eat. A get could only be written on any object that doesn't have a life in it and doesn't eat, and that therefore it excludes an animal. That's the source for Rabbi Yosef Glili said. The Rabbanon and the Rabbanon that disagree and say that a get could be written even on a living animal. Ikasav besefer. If the Torah would say that you write it in a sefer, then I would agree to the drasha you're saying. The Torah is being specific that the get has to be written into a sefer, into that kind of a document that doesn't have a ruach chayim, excluding an animal. Hashter the chsiv sefer. Now that the Torah uses the term sefer, it's not talking about the material of what you write it on. Rather, it's talking about the content of what you're writing. So what it's coming to tell you is, the sfiras dvarim ba'almahu. It's telling you what it is, the message that you have to write, that you should write because of law, sefer krisis, write to her the message of krisis that you're separating from her. Aret muteres, or whatever the lashon fully of a get is. That's what it means, but it doesn't refer to the material that you're writing it on. Now, the question still remains, V'Rabbanon, hai v'kosav my darshi when the Torah writes v'kosav, so what do they darshan from v'kosav? What exactly is v'kosav coming to be marba? So the Gemara says, Ahumi ba'yelahu, according to the Rabbanon, the v'kosav comes to tell you, v'ksivim izgareshes, v'einim izgareshes b'kesef, that the way to divorce a wife is specifically by writing her a get, and not through money. Why would I think you can use money? I would think to say, since there's a hekesh. When the Torah says v'yatza v'haisa, we compare the yitzia, the divorce, to the havoya, when you create the marriage, when they get married. And therefore, just like when they get married, so the Kiddushin can be done through kesef, through money, so to the divorces with money. So Kamashmalon, therefore the Torah is writing not sefer, but v'kosav law to say that it could only be done through writing a get. Rabbi Yosi Aglili. Now, according to Rabbi Yosi Aglili, since he uses v'kosav law for something else, so from where does he know that you can't divorce your wife with money? So he answers, Misefer krisus nafkele. The Torah writes sefer krisus. What does this mean? Sefer karsa. Only a document, a bill of divorce, the get. That's what will sever the connection. Ve'en davacha karsa. There's nothing else that can do the krisus. That's where he learns it out from. Ve'edach, according to the Rabbanan, that do not need this drasha. So what are they learning from these extra words, sefer krisus? Hahomi bayale, what the Rabbanan needed for is ledavar hakairis beinoi lebeina. That when you give a get, it has to be given in a way that it totally severs the connection between husband and wife. Kedetanya, as we learned in the Braise, if you give your wife a get and you're telling her that this is your get in the condition that you will not drink wine forever. You're not going to go to your father's house forever. This is not a krisis, because you never, from her entire life, she's always connected to you. But if he says to her for 30 days you shouldn't drink wine or go to your father's house, this is a krisis, because when the time comes up, so then she's fully disconnected from him. So therefore it is a krisis, and the lashon over here that Rashi says is that right away, me'achshav, he's immediately allowed to marry her, min ha-Torah. Rashi adds those words, min ha-Torah. So Mefarshim say from Rashi it seems that min ha-Torah he may marry her right away, but midrabanan he has to wait until the condition is fulfilled. Okay, so that's the case that he learns out. That's what the Rabbanan learn out from here. Sefer krisis is teaching me that the get has to be given in such a manner that it will be a full krisis. V'idach, according to Rabbi Yosi Aglili, from where do we know this point? Mikares krisis nafke. The word krisis itself has room for two drashas. It could have said sefer kares, a sefer that severs, and it says krisos. So therefore, we learn out that it's both the point that he said before, that only a get creates gedushin and not money. And we also learn out this halacha that a get has to be a full severing of the connection of husband and wife. V'idach, according to the Rabbanan, kares krisis leidarshi. They do not see krisis as a place for two drashas, and therefore they only darshan one drasha, as the Gemara explained, that you can't be megarish your wife with kesef. Sorry, that was Rabbi Yosi Aglili's drasha. They only learn one drasha, that it has to be a full krisis, which is without any conditions that will attach her to him forever.